Internet, which is one of the most popular topics these days. And we are going to talk about the connected world, what it all looks like, and hopefully with some emphasis on where one of our homes is these days, which is our cars, and how is that going to play a role in the future and our homes. So I'm going to briefly mention all the panelists' names, and I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves, as well as the name of the company, their own role in the company, and how the company plays a role in the connected world. To my immediate left is Mark Platshon from BMW iVentures. To Mark's left is John Feland from Argus Insight. Hakan Kostepen is from Panasonic, Silicon Valley. And to Hakan's left is Mark Gazit, ThetaRay. Calm down, you have your chance. and Igal Elbaz from AT&T. And so with that, I'd like to ask Igal to please kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, is that working? Yes. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Igal Elbaz, and I'm the VP for Ecosystem and Innovation for AT&T. Actually, I just moved in about 10 days ago from Israel to the Bay Area, so it's all very exciting for me. The family just moved, so we're just still settling in. Thank you. In my role in the company, I have like 3 major operations. One is the AT&T Innovation Centers, the foundries. We have 5 of them, and the idea is how we create an open collaboration with the ecosystem to inspire innovation, and with the idea of bringing them into AT&T from ideation into commercialization. So think about, getting in the marketplace, understanding what is going on in the market, what are the startups are working on, what are the trends, and see what are the challenges that can be filled in AT&T with those, creating the collaboration and the dialogue. And in fact, the interesting about this is that once we identify that there's a match where we see a technology that we think can bring value to our customers, then we bring them over to the Innovation Center, which is mainly an engineering kind of place where we collaboratively engineering with our partners and vendors. And this is where we trial the technology, we try it out, we're doing usually a 12 weeks proof of concept. And if we think that this can bring value, then we're trying our best to bring it to market quickly. So we're not investing, we're not looking into the IP or any of this. We're just trying to collaboratively engineering solution that can bring value to our customers. We have 5 of them. One in Israel. This is how I was running this foundry for about 4 years. This is how I know a big part of the people that attending this conference. We have one here in Palo Alto, obviously in the heart of the Silicon Valley. 2 of them in Plano, Texas, and one is Atlanta. And to make it relevant to what we talk about today, so one of the foundries in Plano is all around machine-to-machine and connected devices. So this is a place where we have, hardware and RF engineers that can, if you have an idea, you can come in and we can help you to prototype even the hardware with the 3D printers and put a SIM in and see how it's going to play onto our network, and start looking into a data and creating the services on top of the hardware, and how you can create a service around the hardware. So a lot of interesting things around this. So we're operating in machine-to-machine, connected devices, and obviously a lot of work around connected car, and this is how we tied into this. We also have a large crowdsource internal employees platform we call TIP, the Innovation Pipeline, where any one of our employees can submit their ideas and can be voted by the other employees. And the one that get the best score are evaluated by the leadership every few months, and we are actually funding those ideas into the market where we find it's appropriate and the ideas are good. And besides this, we are strongly enhanced with the VCs community through an outreach program that we have. So we are regularly talking with the industry over here and creating the relationships so we can find out what's going on and bring them in. Besides this, as a company, we'll talk about this later, but we heavily focus on connected car. We see this as a huge driver in the future of the as a wireless company. Thanks.
Thank you. Mark, welcome. I know you just arrived as well.
Yes. Yeah, I just arrived. And may I say that probably one of the first trials we've done was with the foundry run in Israel. So we had great connections. And now my name is Gazit. I'm managing a company called ThetaRay. And the company was established based on 10 years of academic research in Yale and Tel Aviv universities on how to protect critical infrastructure for organizations that install this infrastructure sometimes a long time ago. So we're talking about power plants, engines of motors, financial institutions that still have software that not necessarily was developed with security principles in mind. And we do it in a way that we believe is disruptive by listening to information from many different sources. So when we try to find cybersecurity attack using big data analytics on a power plant, for example, we will listen to the information that comes from the turbines, such as pressure, velocity, speed, etc., as well as network traffic. So we'll identify attack in real time when it will happen. And what's really interesting is that this world that was considered to be more traditional now becoming a world of the future. Well, when all those low-tech devices are being connected to each other, one of our shareholders, General Electric, and I encourage you all to go to the website. 2 weeks ago, they announced something called Minds and Machines. They invested more than $1 billion during the last 3 years here in California, established a center in San Ramon, stole about 1,000 people from Cisco, Google, etc. And we are proud to be part of Recruited, yeah, you're right. Gave him a proposal they couldn't refuse. And we're proud to have them not only as our shareholders, but being part of their ecosystem called Predix. And when Jeff Immelt made an announcement about this new world of minds and machines, he said that industrial company, when you go to sleep as an industrial company, you wake up as a software company, and 4G is a big thing to say. For us, it's definitely very interesting to be able to protect all those devices that are being connected with each other, and definitely smart power generation facilities, smart grid, smart airplanes, and smart cars is something that we specialized in.
Thank you. Hakan, please tell us a little bit about your organization.
I'm going to try to keep it short because of the questions. We want to get to questions.
Absolutely.
So my name is Hakan. I'm within Panasonic Silicon Valley Center. And one thing that I want to clear for the discussion, M2M, machine-to-machine definitions in Panasonic is much more device-to-device. IoT, we look at it as more human element involved. So I was hoping that we can get to some of those discussions later on as far as what does IoT, what is the difference between M2M and IoT, and what is the impact into a lifestyle. The group in Silicon Valley, maybe 200 people, and it's very much focusing on the U.S. lifestyle. So some of the comments I'll have will be around U.S. lifestyle.
Thank you. John?
My name is John Feland. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Argus Insights. And where we fit in this conversation is we measure the Internet of Humans and have a strong belief that without addressing the opportunities and challenges of the Internet of Humans, the Internet of Things will never take off. Right? And you know this based on what you've seen today with your own devices, where they delight you, where they disappoint you, how their care and feeding feels like a pack of baby chihuahuas asking for firmware updates, battery charging, and everything else. And so I'm going to represent the user in this conversation today.
Hi there, I'm Mark Platshon. I help establish and sort of the West Coast partner for BMW's iVentures group. And I also do some other, I'd say, regular venture capital investing in addition. The reason this is interesting right now is BMW is going to celebrate its 100th anniversary next year. And the board, we're still actually a privately controlled company, even though we're a public company. But the Quant family asked, so what do we do the second 100 years? And while the car hasn't changed much in the last 100, it's going to change a lot in the next 10. So, you know, how the car is connected to its ecosystem, whether it's roads, traffic, trucks, parking meters, parking garages, or each other, that's stuff that we need to be, you know, the ultimate driving machine needs to figure out how you do all that and still be the ultimate driving machine.
So I'm going to start by asking John, because you're in the Internet of Humans. When we say connected world, I mean, it's a buzzword now, right? Everything IoT. What do you envision it to be? If you had to close your eyes and think what would be the perfect situation in a connected world, what would it be? And then look at the negative side as well.
It's a good question. So I'm going to speak based on the data that we have, not just my own opinion, because that's the opinion of one person, and we mine from across the spectrum. The first thing that we're seeing in all this is that an internet, a connected world is one in which we don't have to worry about it being connected, where the connections flow easily. The number one most returned item at Best Buy these days is a Wi-Fi router, and they typically work. It's not an issue with the router itself, it's the human trying to set this thing up. And so one of the biggest barriers, I think, to a connected world is one in which we have to be cognizant of that connection. To me, the beauty of it is if things just kind of happen in a secure way, and I think Mark's company is working on those kinds of things. But right now, how many people here tried to sign into the Wi-Fi when they got in here? Right? And was that a beautiful experience?
So.
It's easy, right? What if you didn't have to? What if you just walked in and it was connected and it gave you the information that you needed based on your context? To me, that's the idea of a connected world, where it becomes, you know, when you raised your hands, how many of you thought to control each individual muscle as you raised your hands? None of you. You're just like, I want to raise my hand. And so when actions within a connected world happen at the speed of thought and intention, as opposed to specific details, where we shift from a world in which we have to control individual device, and instead we live our lives as activities chained together based on what we want to do. To me, that's what the dream looks like.
So in the same light, I mean, there's so many connected devices even at the home, right? It's the security, there's your light bulb, there is your thermostat. But then that all requires a lot of different hubs and different machines and radio frequency. Hakan, how do you see that, what the problem is? Is there a solution to that so that we don't have to fix everything based on the provider?
You mean interoperability, and there are a lot of things happening on that area. And of course, Panasonic has many domains, from audio, video, computing, car, in-flight entertainment systems, and energy, and surveillance systems, and projectors, and so on and so forth. But it's not just one company's problem. It's a problem for all of us. And things from, let's say, Qualcomm all join. That opens up device-to-device connectivity, APIs and SDKs. But that's also a problem because whose SDK are you going to use? Everybody has an SDK. Everybody has a standard. So from our point of view, what we see it's not a technology question. It's more like a business model question. When you look at the IoT or new connected world, unfortunately, a lot of people get stuck in the technology itself, which is important. But at the same time, so far, I don't think we've found the real solution to the problem we have. And we define them in 4 categories in Panasonic, and I think all of you could relate to this. Number 1, we have too much information. We don't know what to do. We cannot process information enough, each of us. Number 2, we don't have enough resources, including time, all of us. And number 3, there's a convergence of everything anymore. There's no, I mean, 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, you would reply an email on BlackBerry or iPhone Sunday, and you would get from your boss Monday, you know, great, I didn't know you were working. Now it's expected. If you don't answer your phone Sunday, it's like, are you okay? What happened? So convergence of everything, all times. And with that, it's also important what we call micro-location, the contextual places such as airport or hotel, motel, or the conference areas, and so on and so forth. The last one is eco-sustainability. So I think we've got to focus on the solution.
Do you see anyone in particular in the lead?
Well, I think in Japan, it's a little bit different. In Japan, there's much more collaborative environment. Now, as you go to eastern part of US, it gets more competitive. Now, welcome to Silicon Valley. You'll see in Silicon Valley, I'm very impressed. Although people look like on the surface they're competing, there's a lot of talk going on. I think we need to have more collaboration, more talk, but focus on, as John said, user, the solution. I think that's the key. And that comes from education, that comes from wellness. These are the basic fundamental needs we need. Security, safety, or airport. All of us travel at the airport. These are the critical times. We call it time, space, and place. It's very relevant. So you've got to bring these special things to the people at the right time, and it comes with the discovery. Then we think everything else will follow.
So you brought up Japan, for example. You know, in the past, it was Detroit, it was Japan, it was Germany who were the leaders in the car industry. with the self-driving car, with the electric car and everything else, Silicon Valley seems to really have been taking a lead in that. How do you see, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot just because you're with BMW. How do you see the role of Silicon Valley in setting the lead in the next generation of cars?
Well, let's see. I mean, I often say, welcome to Little Detroit. I mean, this is every car company and now every tier one and more the whole supply chain isn't setting up their manufacturing here, obviously, but they are setting up their R&D, their next steps, their innovation hubs here, whether it's a bunch of the OEMs, and you named them all, they're literally all here. So are they here because they want to work together, or because they need to be close to Google and Apple and NVIDIA and the others? They'll argue about why they did it. But it's partly to keep your enemies close, and you know what I mean. It's important.
Any other comments from the panel?
I would say the German OEM's been here longer, and then now we have the Japanese OEMs are here, and of course US OEMs are coming as well, along with the Chinese and Korean and so on and so forth. But I think the point here is the Google and Apple are interested in the car because car is a personal space. It's moving, and the search you do in the car, 99.9% of the time, it will translate to electronic transactions, purchase. If I'm in the car, I'm searching for pizza, I'm going to buy pizza. So in that sense, there's a direct impact, search, find, and buy, and monetization of that is incredible. In drive-through alone in US, it's $94 billion. $94 billion. So when you do the numbers, fuel is almost $200 billion. So it's incredible that everybody, specifically for US lifestyle, because it's very much car-centric, how we can monetize purchases or the time in the car you have and tie that into discovery. And it could be your weekday drive, or it could be rental car. So there's a lot of activity. And at the same time, another quick point that I want to make, and maybe open up more questions, it's all about who owns the customer. Car makers love the fact that in the car you are in an island. You are the BMW, Mercedes-Benz driver. Now it's not like that anymore. And the new generation also looking at car as a little bit like utility. And I would compliment, let's say BMW, ultimate driving machine as a vehicle. They have a huge philosophy now getting into iDrive, i3, i8. It's more like a connected mobility. So I think there's a huge shift on some car makers we see. And of course, Tesla made a big difference too, which we should not ignore and give them a credit.
So some car companies, of course, have embedded connectivity. Some have tethering capabilities. Igal, you're with AT&T. You're like the master of connectivity for the rest of the world. How do you see that coming about, the embedded versus the tethering functionalities?
So obviously we would like to see the car with the embedded connectivity. We see more and more car manufacturers like BMW and others signing deals with AT&T, and more LTE embedded cars are hitting the road this year through the partnership. And I think there's a couple of drivers for that over time will make two things. One, I think the killer apps or the is going to be driven by the fact that our life is going to be better by an embedded car. So for an example, urban traffic and congestion, and if we're going to have a better fuel consumption, because all of the things that we can take out of the car and collectively between the different vehicles in certain areas, we can manage our life better. So this is one thing. The other thing is all about user experience that John has mentioned. Think about, and this is a prototype that we developed here out of the Palo Alto Foundry, how you carry your identity with you into all of the endpoint that you own. One of them is the head unit in the car. So think about the fact that I get into the car and automatically through the network, my identity is carrying out of me, and I can allow all kind of services like voice and messages follow me into the car into a seamless experience. So Once you create the seamless experience, once you create the killer apps, then all of a sudden, all of the other things that are driven by the network, you know, high definition, voice, and video streaming into the car and other services going to follow out of this. But definitely, I see the embedded vehicle leading on this.
So do you think the connectivity being embedded, can it keep up in the new generations of whatever the technology is compared to tethering?
Absolutely. We're already seeing, again, in 2015, you're going to see more and more all of the cars that are coming with LTE connectivity is probably going to be out with AT&T. And you are on LTE network. That allows you to do so many things that you probably couldn't do today. I think most of the cars today that are connected are on 2G. Some of them are getting into 3G. LTE is going to represent a big advantage around this. Again, think about the services, video streaming into the car, picture navigation, having 7,000 web station, radio station in your car, high definition audio. All of these are enabled by the network. So I think we're just tipping into the 4G. So definitely a lot of services going to be able to be enabled through that.
One of the issues that comes up within that conversation is that we don't replace our cars as often as we replace our phones and other devices. And there has to be a way to kind of bridge those gaps and make that upgrade as the new 5G rolls out, as voice over LTE rolls out, make that, to your point, seamless to the consumer. Because otherwise, one of my bosses in the past lives had a beautiful BMW he loved. He drove it every day, and in the center console, there was a Motorola StarTAC. Some of you don't even know what I'm talking about. It's so old, right? And that was the height of technology, right? It's a car phone. I mean, it's a phone with a car, or vice versa. And there was no upgrade path. There was no way for the user to adjust to the new technologies that were available for that connectivity. And so
Replace the car.
just replace the car. Yes, that's the man from BMW. Can I get one for $199 for a 2-year contract? That'd be great. And so that's something that has to be considered as we roll out, because just because we can doesn't mean we should. And we need to make sure that we design the right upgrade paths for consumers to take advantage of where we're taking them with these stories of the future.
Yeah, I mean, many of the, this question is only a temporary question. Should a car be tethered or should a car be pervasively connected is a temporary question because it's going to seem silly to even ask that question a year or two from now, because so many of the services that the car is going to represent have to work whether the driver's in it or not. So if you get out and take your phone, you can't leave a car that's stupid.
But I would say a lot of things are shifting, so we have to be a little bit open-minded. And when you look at the car cycle now, we're looking at 2016, 17 model year. So when you put these things in context, when you look at the physical partitioning today in the vehicle, TCU, head unit, we have to go beyond that too. So in Panasonic, we have some strategies, which is we have an IP now using the car key. Can car key be with you, upgradable, it has your personality and so on and so forth, because a lot of people now do car share. So do you need one car, one key? If you have 5 BMWs, do you need 5 keys, or do you just need one key that accesses 5 vehicles, and then you tie this into other devices you have and so on and so forth? So in that sense, the architecture, the logical, physical partitioning is also shifting. Wearables, I mean, why wouldn't I have a BMW bracelet for my wife as a key? It doesn't have to be key, as we know. So a lot of these things, I think, will make things very, very exciting. And I'm very happy you're here now. Because we work with AT&T in Atlanta, with Glenn Lurie organization. But I think in Silicon Valley, AT&T needed somebody like Igal, very strong. And I'm hoping there's a song, Hotel California. A lot of people come here, they don't go back. So hopefully you'll stay here for a long time.
Okay, so this is all great. I mean, we can have a connected car, takes us to the pizza places and everything else. But there are 2 fundamental things that most of us are concerned anyway on 2 levels. And with cars, one of them is even more. One is privacy. The other one is security. And Mark, I'd like you to address the privacy issue first, and then we'll come back to the security aspect.
So first of all, I think that there is enormous drive to make cars connected as well as other devices. and the drive is basically an economic drive. We all understand, and we had discussions here, that the cars will be connected, although it's dangerous. And we have the same issue with airplanes. Today, airplanes are not necessarily connected, but there's a very nice article called The Power of 1%. When you connect those devices to the network, and you might call an airplane just a big flying car, you get a lot of advantages. If you do it on the ground, you can be much more efficient and eliminate a lot of traffic jams if cars will have constant distance between themselves. Airplane that lands can report, and that's one of the pilots we're running currently, can report its situation about its engines to the airport, and you're probably all familiar with a situation where you come to the airport and you wait for that maintenance car that will come because before another car came and found that something wrong is with an engine. It can be eliminated, and when in airline business you save this 1%, it's about $10 billion of profits. It's much more than they're making right now. The same is with cars. But with this upside, of course, comes a downside. And I don't know if you know, but today it's not extremely difficult to hack in a car. Many people are not doing it, which is great, but let me give you just one example of how the car was hacked, and we can get here professional advice, how easy is that. By the way, you talked about upgrading the car. Do you know how you upgrade your software in a car? You can do it, you have computers. For those of you that don't know, you not necessarily do it with a thumb drive. You don't do it as download from the internet. You still in many cars have a CD drive. You install a special type of CD, right? And then it upgrades the entertainment system of a car. Okay. In some cars, not necessarily BMW, those infotainment systems are connected to the engine system as well to allow you to see this beautiful engine information, you know, fuel consumptions, etc. So one of the very interesting pilots or hacks was a CD disc that has an MP3 song, but actually when it was introduced, it caused the computer to reboot, to download a faulty software, and then actually to allow a hacker to take over the system. And just because we had this panel, I brought this small device. Do you recognize it? It came from China. Yes. It connects to, I believe it's OBD2 bus. And the reason I mentioned it came from China because it doesn't have all the restrictions. So it's actually become a Wi-Fi router. When I install it in a car, everybody around who has a passport can get access to the car computer. In many cars, it will be read-only access, but in other cars, it can be write access as well. And basically what it allows you to do, if you're a hacker, is to get information about all the things you're doing in a car, the way you drive, where you drive, etc., which is in a way a lot of a privacy. But in many cases, when we talk about connected cars, the idea is to make those cars to drive in a very safe way. For example, to stop if it's just about to crash. But imagine that somebody sends a command to stop when you drive 150 miles an hour. And nobody does it, like nobody drives so fast. But if you would, and somebody sends this command through your 4G system that is supplied by AT&T, of course the results can be different. So people always ask me what's the definition of cybersecurity, and I think connected cars or connected devices for me illustrates the best difference between data security and cybersecurity. And for me, cybersecurity is when through the use of network traffic you can actually cause physical damage. And I think the world is going to that direction. Just not to finish on a negative note, I think the history shows that in this area, obviously good guys always win. So it's okay, there will be good solutions for connected cars and it will happen.
So
now, one thing that if I may add, a lot of people say smartphone will do everything. Now, that itself is very vulnerable to security, first of all. So what we see in Panasonic is people will have a lot of devices, variables, devices will be connected. So when you look at John, you'll have his 4 or 5 devices, and if they're together with his car, that's difficult to hack. So it's not just one device, it's much more federated security environment. And we see a lot of activity in that, and that goes into a house, and we all have patterns. I mean, 150 miles an hour, nobody does that. Even if you brake, that's a little bit difficult. So you can put some intelligence and federated security around it, but hacker is hacker, it'll happen, as you said. So I think that danger is here. It was there a long time ago, so I don't see anything new, really. Just more information available.
Well, that brings
And I
me
think,
to-
but
Go
I
ahead,
think
Igal.
it's going to be a joint effort between,
Yeah.
it's not going to be one player is going to own it all on from a security perspective. It's going to be, somewhere between the hardware vendor, the software, the network, obviously. The carrier is going to look more on the network because this is what we do for a living. But at the same time, the hardware within the car and the software and everything, it's going to be a joint effort to address this issue.
And I think this is the new world of security, and that's what we do in ThetaRay, where you can't only look at the network and say, okay, we'll find anomalies, or we'll find attacks looking at networks, or putting like car-based firewalls. The idea is that you have so many devices, so many sources of information, and it's so hard to predict how the attack will look like, so you really need solutions that will look at all this information, you need collaboration between different vendors, and especially you need an ability to identify attack real time, something that we didn't have in computer systems, but we do have in devices that we wear, devices that we drive, instant, fast identification of attack, and fast decision on what to do.
So I remember that, as far as the spectrum and the band, the 5.9 gigahertz, right? So I think in California, we just had a bill introduced by 4 people, one of whom is Congresswoman Issue, about having the FCC open up, the range of the spectrum. But at the same time, car companies have been trying to reserve that range for safety and response teams. Where do you see that happening? Do you see that more as a collaboration, figuring something out, or do you see that as an issue that has to be resolved?
Well, there are a lot of things with the DOT and NHTSA. I mean, states have different things, activities. Michigan, Arizona, California is very active. So definitely it is a collaboration, because a lot of these technologies are not enough by themselves. You need to have more cars, much more defined, maybe corridors. So definitely, and again, in Japan, also the geography is a little bit different, or like, let's say, a country like Israel, you can really try things. And that's why, in a way, Israel or Japan, they have an advantage because they can really try a lot of these things. But in US, it's a little bit difficult. When you go, somebody in North Dakota, they have a BMW and it doesn't work. They've seen a commercial, they travel here. So it's very difficult in US, but more collaboration.
So there's a lot of other issues, and John, again, since you have a lot of experience and expertise in the user aspect of things, with the self-driving cars and ride sharing, there's so many other issues that are going to come about, like liability issues, driving range. There's a whole other spectrum. Where do you see that being resolved? Like you said, if there's one key, 5 different people are using it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the things that Panasonic are working on are trying to take a human-centered point of view as to how we go about doing these things. The collaboration they're doing with AT&T and BMW are, rather than taking a vehicle-centric or network-centric, it's much more of a human-centric, because there's a lot of different ways that we share these things. My daughters don't drive yet, thank goodness, but when they do, they're going to borrow my keys. Well, if it's just the key that's there,